Hi, I'm Lori Wiegand-Jackson, Senior Vice President of IPKeys Power Partners. And we're here today to discuss the PJM demand response programs and your participation as a load resource in synchronized reserves. First, I'd like to tell you a little bit about IPKeys Power Partners. IPKeys Power Partners is a wholly owned subsidiary of IPKeys Technologies, a WBE and SBA certified 8A company established 10 years ago. We have over 225 employees in our headquarters in Eatontown, New Jersey, and offices in California and Virginia. In 2010 and 11, we were honored by Inc. magazine as one of the fastest 500 growth companies. Our energy sector clients include Hawaii Electric, Zero Energy, and Schneider Electric. And our commercial and industrial clients span a broad range from water and wastewater, supermarkets, colleges, high schools, metal manufacturing, broad range of manufacturing, transit authorities, and the Department of Defense federal sector. In 2014, we completed the acquisition of a leading demand response aggregator, North America Power Partners, with expertise in PJM, New York, and Texas markets, as well as California. Our mission, with our expertise in cybersecurity, is to deliver secure technology, integration, consulting, and services, and software for the energy, public safety, and Department of Defense sectors. IPKeys Technologies built its business on contracts with the Department of Defense and public safety, working on its expertise in cybersecurity, information assurance, and we have a gaming division that's helped to develop training solutions for our soldiers abroad. On the energy side, our smart grid solutions include our ICE Energy Interop System and Server and ICE-Box solutions that are OpenADR 2.0B certified, the highest level of certification available for these smart grid technologies. In demand response, we are a DR aggregator, also known as a curtailment service provider. We turnkey our DR assessments, automation, and program management. We participate in organized wholesale markets and utility programs. We work mainly with small to mid-sized commercial and industrial customers in California, PJM, New York, and Texas. And what makes us different is that we focus on program customization, not just your basic demand response, but real-time pricing, transactive energy markets. We provide real-time monitoring with 5-minute updates. Our ICE Online dashboard gives secure access to your energy information, and our AutoDR ICE solution that is OpenADR 2.0B certified. And that puts us ahead of the curve with a standards-based platform that supports interoperability and with a high level of security, yet configurable to the requirements of different demand response programs and markets across the country. Our turnkey approach provides a no out-of-pocket cost solution for corporate-wide programs, incorporating site assessments, project management with your dedicated account manager. So today I'll talk briefly about PJM grid basics and demand response, and then we'll go into detail on the PJM rules for demand response in the Synchronized Reserves Program, the importance of AutoDR technology to enable participation in synchronized reserves, and then revenue forecasts. We'll finish with a Q&A session. The PJM is one of several regional transmission operators or independent system operators in the United States. The PJM grid is the largest power grid in the United States and spans from parts of Illinois to New Jersey and as far south as Virginia and West Virginia. PJM's role is to, at an instantaneous level, ensure that demand for electricity and supply for electricity are in balance, keeping the lights on. When there's an imbalance between supply and demand on the power grid, the result is a blackout. Electricity moves at the speed of light through thousands of miles of high voltage wires, and PJM coordinates between the utilities, the power generators, and other resource suppliers like demand response, as well as some select large consumers. They also support innovation and advancement in smart grid technologies, and IPKeys Power Partners has supported several pilot programs with PJM in the marketplace for smart grid solutions. The ultimate goal of PJM is to ensure access to affordable, reliable, and sustainable power. Demand response is an important part of how PJM maintains grid reliability. Demand response, simply stated, is the reduction in electric consumption in response to a signal. That signal could be an emergency notice, a high price signal, or even a regulation signal for voltage. And in response to that signal, customers cut back on their use of electricity for a specified period of time. Customers can reduce their consumption completely, or they can shift their consumption to another time period. But for the period of a demand response event, customers will reduce and cut back on their use of electricity, thereby allowing the grid operator to deal with challenges that they're facing today, such as the significant levels of renewable energy that are intermittent resources, the retirement of power plants, the fact that natural gas-driven power generation may not always have firm natural gas supply. These are all things that PJM is dealing with on a day-to-day basis, and demand response plays a key part in their solution to maintaining grid reliability in these conditions. So what is synchronized reserves? PJM has a synchronized reserve program that provides fast response resources, both generation and demand response, that stabilize the power grid when there's sudden, unplanned disruptions that occur on the system, such as a transmission line outage or a power plant outage. PJM is required to maintain a level of reserves, approximately 10 to 15% at all times. These reserves are resources that are on standby, waiting, just in case there is this kind of emergency event, and then they'll come in and supply that need on short notice. PJM maintains its reserves as part of its responsibility to ensure the reliability of the power grid and procures hundreds of megawatts of reserves every hour. So, looking at the top of the screen, we have our typical power grid, generators pushing electricity through transmission lines to local control centers that are lowering the voltage and then ultimately bringing that supply to an industrial plant or commercial or residential property. But there are times when those transmission lines or that generator has a failure. And if that generator trips out suddenly, PJM needs an immediate source to make up the difference, again, to keep the lights on. So when that generator trips, and the system, for example, needs 10,000 kW or 10 megawatts, the grid operator can choose to have that shortfall supplied by a generator, or they could also call on demand response. And whether that generator is putting 10,000 kW onto the grid, or our aggregation of colleges, warehouses, manufacturing, office buildings are taking 10,000 kW or 10 megawatts off the grid, as long as supply and demand stay in balance, everything is good for the grid operator. And so, demand response as a reserves resource is paid equal payments to standby generators that are getting paid to stand by and be ready to serve when needed. What are the rules for demand resources to participate in demand response? Well, this is a short notice, short duration program, just to really fill in the gap while PJM puts other plans in place to meet the objective of dealing with that transmission or power generation plant failure. PJM provides 10-minute notice. We call that fast response. The event duration is typically less than an hour, and on average in 2014, the events were just 15 minutes in duration. As inflexible resources, demand response is required to bid into the market for an entire hour. PJM pays whether or not an event is called. This is an hourly market. PJM's reserves market is a market that is transacted in on an hourly basis, and IPKeys Power Partners places bids which may clear, and when a bid clears and you're okayed to be paid, you'll earn revenues as a standby resource, whether you're called on to reduce load or not. So this is an hourly market for procuring standby resources. The minimum bid is 100 kW. We register the site, we conduct the necessary testing that PJM requires, and then manage the bids and settlements with weekly and monthly bid reviews and updates. The commitment levels for those bids are the level of guaranteed load drop, and they may vary throughout your availability period, and they can also be adjusted on a day-ahead basis with sufficient notice to adjust the bid. So your commitment levels can be different hour by hour, day by day, week by week, and then even adjusted with day-ahead notice. Also, PJM requires 1-minute interval data. IPKeys Power Partners provides our icebox, which obtains that 1-minute interval data for settlement and compliance. What are the risks of participating in a synchronized reserves program? Well, first and foremost, by working with IPKeys as your synchronized reserves aggregator, your risk is mitigated. There will be no penalties for any performance issues. However, your revenue may be adjusted for fluctuations in performance. Therefore, if you do not curtail to the level that you're required, your payment may be reduced or eliminated for a period of time to repay credits that you were receiving on a retrospective basis. The time frame of that is determined by PJM. If there is repeated non-performance, then your site may be removed from the program. Our primary focus is always on the customer, whether it's comfort, production, so we will work with your team to develop the synchronized reserve availability that makes sense for your unique facility. Performance is calculated as a load drop from the meter read directly before the event was called. Again, we're capturing that data in 1-minute intervals so we know exactly where you were as the event was called. And we work with our customers to establish reasonable bids for every hour of participation. Now, there is one exception to that load reduction calculation coming from the meter reading where you were directly before an event was called, and that's called the batch load exception. Batch load, by definition, is a demand resource that has a cyclical production process such that at most times during the process it is consuming energy, but at consistent, regular intervals, ordinarily for periods of less than 10 minutes, it reduces its consumption of energy for its production processes to minimal or zero. So if there is a batch process, one that has a start and stop type of profile, it would be granted an exception with regard to performance calculation. Historically, in 2015, year-to-date, we've had 16 events with an average length of just 12 minutes, and in 2014, there were a total of 39 events with an average length of 15 minutes, in total less than 10 hours. This graphic depicts the days and times of these events, and you can see that they occur on all days of the week, and they occur at all times of the day. So your availability and the amount of bids that you place in for that available time frame that clear will impact your payment. And it will also impact how many call events you have. So how do customers participate in synchronized reserves? So we're really talking about reduction for just an hour or less. And that can be achieved on an automated basis by turning off or dimming lights, raising air conditioner set points temporarily, turning down chillers for short periods, cycling HVAC motors, turning off production lines and using that short period for toolbox talks, safety or maintenance work so that you don't have unproductive downtime, reducing variable frequency drives, turning off plug loads from computers or printers that aren't being used, or operating backup generators. So I want to talk now about the importance of automated demand response technology, because as we said, this program is a fast response program. So AutoDR is a system that automates demand reductions in response to signals sent from machine to machine. There's no manual intervention required to participate in demand response events, therefore enabling response in 10 minutes or less. The signals that are sent from PJM are transmitted in real time to customer equipment through our ICE equipment. We send event signals and price signals, and we're able to initiate load reduction in just minutes. This enables customers to participate in fast response demand response programs, in price response, and initiate demand management programs automatically with notice and override options, leveraging smart grid, related standards, and security guidelines through the Open ADR certification process. Open ADR 2.0b is the highest level of cybersecurity and the highest level of certification for these smart grid solutions. Open Automated Demand Response, or Open ADR, provides a non-proprietary open standard. This is very important in that it allows interoperability between devices that have the same certification, thereby reducing the cost of implementing smart grid solutions on a large-scale basis. So we've adopted this open standard-based approach, embracing the development and deployment of smart grid. The Open ADR specification is supported by the U.S. Department of Energy, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, and has enabled the smart grid interoperability effort. So by using automated load management to participate in demand response, first you get fast response. You can meet that 10-minute notice requirement for synchronized reserves. In fact, our AutoDR technology will allow you to participate in an even faster response program like the regulation programs of PJM, which require signaling in 4 seconds. It provides for response even if personnel are not available at the time an event is dispatched. And this is very important because with a 10-minute response, you don't have time to look for someone to get as a backup if that person that normally would be dispatching the demand response is not available. It allows for remote monitoring, capturing in real time your interval data usage so you can see how am I doing as the event is occurring and make any adjustments that you would need to ensure performance. It reduces the stress of program compliance, provides for secure connectivity, which is very important as we address cybersecurity on an ongoing basis in our country, and has signaling capabilities directly to your SCADA, energy management, or building automation systems. It sends and acknowledges DR events, allows you to define availability, and provide for set and forget levels of participation. The revenues for the Synchronized Reserves Program are made even if there is no event called. So you're earning standby payments for being a standby resource, a reserves resource for the hours that your bid is accepted by PJM. Some hours pay $0 and there is really no opportunity, but many hours pay more than zero. And the opportunity is there to earn those standby credits hour after hour after hour. PJM also pays make-whole payments, and we can identify if there are fixed costs associated with your participation in an event, and we can advise PJM of those fixed costs, and they will provide a make-whole payment to cover those costs every time there is an event in which you are called to participate. Each site establishes its own availability period or schedule, which again can be modified weekly, daily, or even hourly. But more hours of availability means higher payments. So here are some examples of the kind of earning potential in this program. And we're providing 3.5 years of data. So you can see that there is some fluctuation year to year. But on average, for a 100 kW offer, which is relatively small, for 8 hours from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., 7 days a week, 365 days a year. This was in particular in the PJM PICO zone, so it's part of the Mid-Atlantic region. A 100 kW offer during those time frames would have earned on average about $3,625. So if you have 1 megawatt to offer, we're talking $36,250 per year on average. Now, 2014 was an interesting year, and that same megawatt would have earned $47,970 or nearly $48,000 because of the polar vortex that we experienced. And you see the big difference really occurring in that January, February, March, April timeframe of that year. We also have had an increase in the value of demand response since 2013 as a continuing trend. Now if we take a look at a night shift operation of 200 kW for 8 hours, but now this 8 hours is 7 p.m. to 2 a.m. 7 days a week, 365 days a year availability, again still in that PJM PICO zone. That 200 kW on a 3-year average earned $4,619. And the megawatt offer would be about a little over $20,000. So there is still good value even in evening hours to participate as an automated resource, or if it's an industrial process and you have an easy way to turn it off with short notice, you could still participate on a manual basis. So what are the steps to get into PJM Synchronized Reserve Program? Well, PJM allows customers to have a separate curtailment service provider for this Synchronized Reserve Program. So even if you're already participating in demand response, but are only participating in the capacity market, you could work with a CSP like IPKeys Power Partners to put you into the Synchronized Reserves Program and earn this additional revenue stream. We complete a no-cost site assessment, including reviewing your interval data that we obtained from the utility company. That requires you to sign a letter of agency authorization that just allows us to capture that data directly from the utility. And we take that interval data and we plug it into our models, and we come back with a revenue forecast. We have vendor conferences, so if we will be integrating with a SCADA or genset or energy management or building automation system, we'll work with your vendors, conference in to discuss the cost of integration to the IPKeys Power Partners ICE system, and then we will cover those costs upfront for you in our no out-of-pocket cost approach. We'll provide you with a proposal that shows how we'll capture the initial cost of automating your demand response to obtain those payments from the first payments that you would normally receive from the program. So completely performance-based, no out-of-pocket cost to you. We'll execute an agreement, complete the installation of our ICE system, any programming from your vendors, testing and registration with PJM. The testing requirement is PJM's requirement. We must have interval data, 1-minute interval data. And so overall, this process is a 90 to 120 day process to get you completely installed, tested, and registered with PJM. Now I'd like to turn it over to a question and answer period. We thank you for taking the time to listen to our presentation. On the screen now is my contact information. Again, I'm Lori Wiegand Jackson. IPKeys Power Partners Senior Vice President. And in addition, I've added 2 other contacts. Scott Delaney is our PJM representative for sales. So if you're interested in getting a free site assessment, please reach out to Scott. And I've also included Mike Palumba, our Senior Account Manager. Mike is a dedicated account manager overseeing the account management team. And he can also answer questions that you have. And if you're an existing customer of ours, he would certainly be happy to walk you through the process of getting you set up in our Synchronized Reserves Program. So again, thank you for joining us in our presentation, and I'll now open it up to a question and answer period.